Wonderful. And just in case you're wondering, Tim Carter did have something to do with Katie being here. So there you go. Oh, welcome everybody. I want to welcome anyone on the live stream today. We continue the theme of creative expression for the month of October. And the talk title for today, well, isn't that interesting? See what that definition down there at the bottom. The talk title for today kind of allowed me so much in terms of promise as to what I could talk about having to do with developing resiliency. And there are many different ways to go with this talk title. We creatively express in many and varied ways, but one of the most important ways in which we express as religious scientists is through a thing we call spiritual mind treatment. And if you're here for the first time today, spiritual mind treatment is positive prayer. And it is quite different from the traditional sort of supplicating prayer that we might have grown up with in other religions. Spiritual mind treatment is affirmative, first and foremost, in that we do not ask God or Spirit to give us our desires, which may or may not happen. We state our truth and have an expectation that those desires are already being filled in the mind of God, and we are simply here to make them welcome. This is the whole premise behind spiritual mind treatment. In the more traditional prayer method, we might have asked this capricious, judgmental God to please fulfill our desires. And we would wait and see if we were worthy enough in God's eyes to receive the desired results. I remember as a child wondering and waiting, and it was sort of that part of me that, wow, this can't be right. Even as a small child, I figured out very early on that my God was going to give me everything that I desired. Ernest Holmes writes, "The words I speak are the law of good, and they produce the desired result because they are operated on by a power greater than I am. Good alone goes from me, and good alone returns to me." In other words, the good I seek is the good that I receive. And it's a foregone conclusion. There is absolutely no wondering in this process of spiritual mind treatment. I state my requirements, and Spirit responds accordingly. Now, that's how it's supposed to work. Resiliency, as defined by the dictionary, means speedy recovery from problems, the ability to recover quickly from setbacks. That's one of the dictionary definitions. It also means elasticity, or the ability of matter to spring back quickly into shape after being bent, stretched, or deformed. Isn't that the most wonderful word for our teaching? This is what our teaching is all about, resiliency. Spiritual mind treatment, when done with feeling and conviction, has the power to help us quickly recover from setbacks. It also helps us spring back into shape after being bent with pain and stretched to our emotional last nerve. It reforms our consciousness back to our personal homeostasis, and it helps us remember the joy. This is an important aspect of it. Joseph Campbell said, "Find a place where there's joy, and the joy will burn out the pain." That's that inherent part of us. That's that intrinsic part of us is joy. And you know, sometimes we're happy and sometimes we're sad, but the core of who we are is joy. And that's what spiritual mind treatment does for anyone who uses it on a regular basis. Ernest is clear that we should, in fact, deny anything and everything that contradicts this perfect state of joy. And in a sense, when we do our spiritual mind treatment, we are presenting a logical argument in our own mind based on a belief that there is only one life which is perfect, and that is my life right now. My life is perfect right now, no matter what it might look like on the surface. Sandra talking about change this morning is very apropos to this talk, because even when we're in the midst of chaos, we know that at the end there's going to be something wonderful that comes out of the chaos. The logical argument is the idea that we were meant to live productive, healthy lives. And if Deepak Chopra is correct, we could conceivably live to 150 years old in fit condition. Now, for some of us, based on our current condition, we would not really want to continue this life, at the way we're feeling right now. But he does say that generationally, for the next generation and the one after that there is this possibility that we would live to be 150 years old. I wonder what that's going to do for Social Security. Anyway, okay, don't go there. Okay. We're not really talking about our physical body anyway in this instance. We don't talk about it through spiritual mind treatment as though we're separate from spirit, but about God in us. Therefore, we still have no difficulty in convincing ourselves that this God is, we will have no difficulty, rather, convincing ourselves that this God is a perfect God. Or will we? That's the big question. I've been reading Anne Lamott's new book on prayer. Anybody a fan of Anne Lamott in here? If you aren't, you should be. She is hysterical, and she makes such a point. It's so wonderful. Her new book is called Help, Thanks, Wow. And the subtitle, The Three Essential Prayers. Help, thanks, wow. Help, I have a problem or a condition, and it's beyond my scope of understanding, and I need God's help to see me through this difficult time in my life. Thanks, I appreciate your intervening on my behalf, God, and that by using your powers of intervention, I'm thankful that I can see my way through this. Wow. We did a great job together, God, and so I'm going to change my ways now and look after myself so this doesn't happen again. Good job, God, for bestowing your grace upon me. That's kind of the premise of the book, right? Well, this is not exactly how we pray in this teaching, but her interpretation of prayer is hers, and yet it works for her and for a lot of us who grew up with the more traditional churches. She shared a poem in the book that a Jewish friend of hers had written for her. And it went like this: Dear God, help for the sick and hungry, homes for the homeless folk, peace in the world forever. This is my prayer, O Lord. Amen. Nice prayer, right? Anne, however, wrote her own prayer. Remember, she has an incredible sense of humor. Hi, God, I'm just a mess. It's all hopeless. What else is new? I would be sick of me if I were you, but miraculously, you are not. I know I have no control over other people's lives, and I hate this. Yet I believe that if I accept this and surrender, you will meet me wherever I am. Wow, can this be true? If so, how is this afternoon, say 2-ish? Thank you in advance for your company and blessings. You have never once let me down. Amen. Great prayer, right? Great prayer. I love her. Probably 15 years ago, my friend Jeannie Hoffman and my sister Jen and I went to a workshop. When it was at the Learning Annex, she taught a writing workshop. Anne Lamott, she is a crazy woman. And to me, she's just brilliant. One of my favorite books by her is Bird by Bird. So if you just want to get a sense of who she is, start with a chronology of the work that she's done and start from the beginning, from the first book she wrote. You'll get a wonderful sense of who she is. Anne Lamott says that there are pre-assembled prayers that we can use, like the prayer of St. Francis, or the Lord's Prayer, or the 23rd Psalm. And she says, as it probably is true for many of us here, that those kinds of prayers have saved us more times than we can remember. You know, that when we're in a pinch, we revert to form. And I think we can all relate to this if you were brought up in another religion. There have been many times, even after becoming a religious scientist, where Hail Mary, full of grace, help me find a parking space, was a good prayer for me, you know, when I was in a hurry to get to an appointment. And what I know for sure is that spiritual mind treatment cannot be used to spiritually bypass what is happening in my life at the level of effect. Now, what that means for me is that sometimes I'm very close to the problem, not only for myself but for somebody else, and I find myself doing spiritual mind treatment so I don't have to think about the problem. And sometimes it's called spiritual bypass, at least what I've been told. And this is not a good way to use this mode of creatively expressing. Sometimes Anne Lamott says, good, honest prayer reminds me that I'm not in charge, that I cannot fix anything, and that I open myself to being helped by some force, some friends, something. Now, that something in our teaching is a power for good in the universe that's available to all of us, and we can use it. We talk about that a lot on Sunday because that's one of the catchphrases of Ernest Holmes. And by doing my prayer work, I am asking for the willingness to step into truth. Because what's true about me right now is that I am clueless as to how a particular issue in my life is going to play out. And I'm compelled to surrender to a power greater than I am, because the how of resolution to my problem is totally up to God. I don't get to tell God how it's going to get fixed or how it's going to get changed. The why and the how are specifically up to God. When and what are up to me. In my spiritual mind treatment, as I just said, I can specify what and when. How and why, again, are up to God. For those who might be reluctant to surrender to this invisible power, one of the greatest tools I've used over the years is a thing called a God box. Anybody know what I'm talking about? It's also called a God can, because there's this like a giant coffee can, and it says God can when I can't on the can. And there's a slit in the top. You put a little piece of paper in the top and you let go of it, presumably. That would be good if we could all do that all the time. 2 weeks ago at the ministers' conference, it was my friend Reverend Judy's birthday. And there was a Tuesday morning down the hill from where the Holiday Inn was, and I stopped there to find something for her. I picked up a scarf and I picked up a box of beautiful soaps, and neither one of those sang to me. Then I saw this beautifully antique box with a little latch on the front, and it was somewhat distressed looking, but it was large enough to hold a number of things, and all of a sudden it came to me that it was a God box. So I bought it along with a card explaining my reasoning, and I gave it to her that afternoon. A God box is a tool for letting go, because whatever I write on that note and put in the God box, I know that I have surrendered the problem or the challenge to God, and I let it go. And over the years, I've used this as a way of giving over the problem to an idea greater than I am. And of course, the idea is God. You know, it's not how big my problem is, it's how big my God is. And my willingness to surrender to this power that is greater than I am. Anne Lamott says that the willingness to do such a childish thing, meaning the God box, comes from the pain of not being able to let go of something. The willingness comes from finding ourselves mad with obsession. We learn through pain that some of the things we thought were castles turn out to be prisons, and we desperately want out. But even though we built them, we can't find the door. Oh, I got goosebumps when I read that. Even for the most seasoned religious scientist, we find ourselves mad with obsession periodically. And even though we do our spiritual mind treatment and complete the release step, We don't really let go and let God, and we can't seem to find the door. We really are looking for a speedy recovery from our problems, which in and of themselves have taken us meticulous and focused concentration over a period of years and years to create in our lives. And we want speedy recovery. That is not to say that it couldn't happen, or that I might not have a moment of clarity and awareness that absolves me from all my problems. However, for many of us, our identity is so wrapped up in the problem, who would we be without it? That's the big question. For myself, when I am ready to look at something that needs healing in my life, it shows up all over the place. Anybody else have that experience? Yes. It might even start out as a sort of a little gentle tap on the shoulder with someone lovingly and generously mentioning that I might want to look at this particular issue. It's often prompted by my children or someone very close to me. And if I don't pay attention, the nudging becomes more and more insistent until I'm mad with obsession, as Anne Lamott says, and I'm compelled to seek counsel. You know, it's not just, it's not to say that those kinds of things don't happen that often for me, but when they do, I know it's something I'm supposed to look at. The problem is not only annoying me, but everyone around me. And it is calling me to take care of something by design before it gets taken care of by someone else or some other thing by default. Now, isn't it more appealing to all of us to live our lives by design and not default? I can't even think of any way in which somebody else could help me or could live my life for me. I don't want that. I want to be able to live my life by design. The signals are always there because it is God in its infinite wisdom trying to get our attention. The beauty of being a good student of metaphysics is that the messages are clearer sooner than later. This is the beauty of it. Anne Lamott says that maybe after you put a note in the God box, you'll go a little limp. And in that divine limpness, you'll be able to breathe again. You've released it. You've let it go. Because there's a lot of tension in the physical body when we have to hold on to something that no longer serves us. We're tensed up. You know, we wonder why our joints hurt, or why our knees hurt, or why our hips don't work properly. That's that tension of holding on to something that no longer serves us. I can breathe again when I've done that spiritual mind treatment for someone else or for myself. And I can feel that sense of just totally letting go. Totally letting go. That's the moment of release in treatment. It's the divine limpness that is the freeing part of treatment, and where the weight of the world is lifted off our shoulders. Something else is now in charge. And I don't have to think about this or obsess over this one more moment. This is truly how we develop resiliency through the power of spiritual mind treatment and affirmative prayer, where the ability of matter to spring back quickly into shape and the ability to recover quickly from setbacks is at the ready. This is a beautiful thing. It means I stop trying to figure it out, because trying to figure it out is exhausting and crazy making. I just simply let go and let God have its way with me. There's that infinitely sweet, sweet moment when someone speaking on my behalf says, "And so it is." And I really believe it now and forevermore. And it's spine-tinglingly, is that a word? Wonderful. It's wonderful in that moment of absolute release. It's a glorious feeling to finally announce to the universe that I of myself can do nothing. It is the Father within that doeth the works, knowing that with God all things are possible. Please join me in consciousness. Please join me, please, in consciousness and go within. And know that as I speak this truth in the first person for all here present, I am doing what we call a spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer. That perfect place of peace within where I know that there is one life. That life is God's life. That life is my life. And that life is perfect right here and right now. I know as I recognize the power and presence of Spirit moving in and through me, in and through my life, in and through my body and the body of my affairs, I know that when I set forth the desire of my heart and what I require in my life for that desire to see its way into my experience of life, I know that God is in the mix, that I am totally and completely centered in truth with a capital T, and that what is true for me today in my life, whether I'm experiencing a challenge of any kind, in any way, with anyone or anything in my life, I know that there is a part of me that is willing to release the mad obsession that I have to holding on to an idea that no longer serves me. I know that as I give up my identity in the problem, I then become the real me in the solution. I become that capital R real me, that one that is God ordained, that one that is totally and completely immersed in and surrounded by that power and presence of Spirit. And so I step back from my life as the observer, and I begin to see the patterns of behavior that no longer serve me. And I do what I know I need to do in order to release these unwanted behaviors. I take that first step in consciousness by saying, I am willing to change my life for the better. I am willing to have a better experience of life through abundant good health and vitality. I am willing to have relationships that are empowering and loving and generous and kind. I am willing to creatively express in a greater and more passionate way. All these things are mine through the power and presence of God. And as I release anything from my life unlike this, Spirit shows up in such a magnificent and gorgeous way in my life. It is not someday, but it is now, in the present moment. As I choose this pattern of behavior for myself, this new me, the October 19th, 2014 version of who I am, everything that came before is complete and done. It no longer needs to have any focus of attention. I simply let it go. And so knowing this to be the truth for myself and for everyone here today, I release and I let go and I live my life from this place of absolute joy and celebration, knowing that as always and forever, there is some part of me that knows that this is how it really is supposed to be. And so I let go and I let God today. I release my word to the law. The law simply embraces it, fulfills it, and does its work by means of me. And together we say, and so it is.